A college assignment on 9/11 causing an uproar. That's because students were asked to consider the attacks from the terrorist perspective. The assignment says, quote, write a paper that gives an historical account of 9/11 from the perspective of the terrorist network. In other words, how might Al-Qaeda or a non-Western historian describe what happened? And don't worry about the fact you don't agree with the terrorists. The point of the exercise is to consider completely different perspectives. Here now, Sterling Beard, editor-in-chief for Campus Reform. All right, you guys get all kinds of interesting reports of things going on college campuses. Did this one surprise you at all?
No, look, this sort of weird intersection of the universities and 9/11 is something that we see on an annual basis at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform. A few years ago, for example, the University of Minnesota's student government actually voted down a resolution on having a moment of remembrance on 9/11 out of concerns that it would increase Islamophobia on campus. So having a weird assignment like this, that's not the worst we've even seen coming out of universities and 9/11.
Okay, we have a quote from Iowa State University. This school here says, this is similar to the vital work being performed in our nation's diplomatic and intelligence operations, such as the Central Intelligence Agency or the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research. They say it's about critical thought, about making you get inside the head of, they wouldn't say the bad guys, most Americans would say the bad guys, but being able to see it from their perspective, is there some value in that?
The idea that, you want to be able to put yourself into the shoes of terrorists to understand where they're going to strike next or what strategies they're going to use, yeah, that's a valid idea. But this assignment said things like, use your imagination, okay? This is a 500-word minimum writing assignment. This is not, take the time. What is Al-Qaeda's perspective on this? Where do you think they would strike next? What is this about? This is, an assignment so you can perceive how different cultures, peoples, and historical perspectives could perceive the same event, but it's silliness.
I mean, to me, the thought is you're going to end up with a paper where you're saying, if you're writing from that perspective, something like, America's the great Satan, we had to do this, I hate them for this many reasons. What American student is going to want to write that paper? Was there a way for students to opt out or to express their displeasure? I mean, how did this bubble up? I've got to guess some students said, I'm not doing it.
Well, it's a little unclear whether or not students had an option on this. Now, this assignment did not appear to, count that much as part of a student's grade. It was early in the semester, and that's one of the reasons why it was a 500-word minimum, and it said things like use your imagination, because it was the first assignment, and it was about getting outside of your comfort zones, thinking outside of the box. But you wouldn't see an assignment of this sort on, say, the Pulse nightclub shooting. You wouldn't see an assignment like that because why wrong target? It's too recent. You wouldn't see that kind of assignment.
Well, what about even saying, well, if you want to historically think about what was going on in Nazi Germany? I mean, I can't imagine somebody asking you to write a paper from the perspective of those who were behind the Holocaust. Or
Imperial Japan after the attack on Pearl Harbor, or the Chinese Politburo after the Tiananmen Square massacre. Exactly.
Well, we talked about this during the commercial. You have no shortage of work because there's so much going on in higher education, specifically here in the U.S., about, speech issues, about the left taking a very specific viewpoint and constantly hammering that. Although here they say that's not what they were doing. You must have more material than you can actually sift through on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Look, at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform last year, we published more than 1,300 stories dealing with liberal bias and abuse. Just yesterday, as we were discussing before we came in, we had a story out of Loyola University Chicago in which the university had a group that was supposed to be for self-identified white students to discuss racism, white privilege and so forth, which it blows my mind. We have better job security covering liberal bias and abuse in higher ed than the funeral industry does.
Well, and like you said, sometimes I see your stories too and wonder if it's The Onion, but it's not. This is real stuff, and it's always interesting, and it sparks a good debate and conversation about what kind of conversations we should be having in higher ed and what the purpose is. So good to see you. Thanks for coming in, Sterling.
Thank you.